and so I had live music. And so after the bars would close and everybody pack up, you know, at least once or twice a week, the guys would all come over to our house, and you know, they'd get there, you know, anytime between 1 and 2:30 or so, and there might be 4 or 5 guys in the house, you know, all at one time singing. And here's a, you know, and they'd pass the guitar around basically, and you know, one guy'd say, here's a song I'm working on, or here's my new record. I just recorded this. What do you guys think? And you know, everybody was always pulling for everybody. There were just so many good country music artists there. There was so many good bands. Lots of people, you know, who were guitar stylists started out there, and you know, there's a guy named Roy Nichols who, you know, I just knew for most all of my life until he passed away a few years ago. But he came through town as he was playing guitar for Lefty Frizzell, and that's where Merle went out to see Lefty Frizzell, who he idolized, and he saw this guy playing guitar, and he was just an amazing guitar player. So Merle said to himself, you know, one day I'm going to have a guitar player like that. Well, it turned out 4 or 5 years later, when Merle started his band, Roy was one of the first guys he called, and Roy came to work for him, and became one of the first members of the Strangers. And so, you know, it was just being around all that stuff that kind of got me going, I guess, and listening and watching Merle and my mom write songs, and what the process kind of was, and listening to songs that my dad wrote, and trying to figure out, you know, what they meant, how did they come about that, and you know, where the rhymes were. And you know, I became a decent rhymer. You know, I could write poetry okay, and so songwriting just sort of came fairly natural to me. And you know, the thing about songwriting is, boy, when that idea comes, you better get on it right now, and have somebody there to write it down, or you write it down. So I don't know how many songs I've written in the middle of the night while I'm laying in bed, and think, I got to remember that, and boy, the next day I'm like, what was that? And I don't, you know, can't remember it. But you know, a lot of good ideas go to sleep with you and don't wake up. But it was just a great time. And so when I started writing, in fact, Big Mama's Medicine Show was the first song I ever wrote. And so from that time, it really spurred me on, knowing that I could do it. And it just became, you know, something but I had to answer the call when it came, when that idea came, or that melody came, or whatever. Many times I'd get out of bed at 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning, and go into my little office or into another room, and just start jotting down lines and guitar riffs and you know, melodies.
And you mentioned a moment ago the Strangers, Merle Haggard's band, and your mother was really a pivotal part of the Strangers sound. The Merle Haggard records, they wouldn't be the same without the Bonnie Owens harmony in the background.
Well, you know, that is true. My mom has always been, she was always a great singer, and she had a good ear for harmony, and you know, she sang harmony with my dad a lot, and when they were you know, quite young, and then when she and Merle fell in love, they just started singing together. They recorded a duet album called Just Between the Two of Us.
Yeah, I have that back at home.
Yeah, and that became a very big hit, and that's where she started realizing, and Merle started realizing, that her voice blends really nicely with his. She didn't sing straight harmony. She would sing a little bit above the harmony singer, and you know, a lot of times it'd be a third part, and a lot of times it would not be. But whatever it was, it seemed to work really well. And I've heard many female artists. You know, like I saw Martina McBride recently, and you know, every time I see somebody that that has any knowledge of the history of country music, especially Merle and my dad and my mom, they'll all say, Merle's sound is so much about Bonnie, and it really was.
And I don't know if you've heard it, but Vince Gill had out his new album, which was a tribute to your dad and your stepdad, and he has Dawn Sears of the Time Jumpers on the recording, and she does the Bonnie Owens harmony. So I thought they were able to copy it pretty good. I mean, they weren't trying to make an exact copy, just trying to honor what was there. But I thought they had a good take on it. I don't know if you've heard it.
Yeah, I have heard it. I've heard the whole album, and it was it really made me very proud. And I actually saw Vince about 2 weeks ago in Bakersfield. He and Paul Franklin came out. They actually had a show the same night as one of my shows, and before his show on that Friday night, they came out to our place, which is it's a nightclub, dinner theater, country music museum.
Crystal Palace.
Quite a neat place called the Crystal Palace, and it's in Bakersfield, California. So if any of your listeners are ever out on the West Coast, it certainly is worth a stop for a day to go in and enjoy some of the old music, and the Buckaroos still play there, and so it's a lot of fun. But Vince was he said I had to come here, and they actually recorded a documentary, a 1-hour documentary about the Bakersfield sound there, and on the stage, and Vince sang 2 or 3 songs, and one of the questions was about that he took at one point, he took a lot of question and answers, and I had basically asked him about the impact that the harmony singers for both, because he talked a lot about Buck and Merle, and because that's what the album is mostly Buck and Merle songs, and he was talking, he said some very nice things about my mom as well as Don Rich and his harmonies for my dad.
And after this interview, my show today, Vince is actually playing with the Time Jumpers just down the street from here, so I'm gonna head over to see them. So I'm gonna have to ask him about the documentary, because I wasn't aware that he was doing that.
Yeah, would you please tell him that I said hello, and it was a pleasure seeing him, please?
I will. I most definitely will. And actually, we mentioned that you sing with the Buckaroos at the Crystal Palace.
Right.
But the original Buckaroos actually, didn't they back you? They backed you up on your recordings, correct? Or
yeah, they did. That was one thing that my dad always took pride in too, is his band, where a lot of the Nashville recording artists would use Nashville artists. Nashville recording artists, and so a lot of the records sounded the same. But my dad, he decided, if he's going to have a band, he's going to have a darn good one, and what you hear on the record is what you're going to get on stage. And I've had many people tell me that was one of the reasons why that helped he and his band become so popular. It was so dynamic in person. It really was. It was, he was the first. I look at Garth Brooks and I think, wow, he was jumping around. My dad didn't do all the jumping around, but he had all the excitement. That's for sure. It was a crazy fun time when you went to a Buck Owens and the Buckaroos concert.
And so, how would you describe the Buddy Allen Owens sound? I know that you'd probably say it was the Bakersfield sound with a little bit of rock mixed in, because you had that influence. Yeah,
I intentionally tried to make my, even though I was into country music, I was also, I still do. I listen to all different kinds of music. I like a little bit of jazz and some blues, and I like Eric Clapton and Van Morrison, and I like just a ton of different kinds of things that I have on my iPod that I listen to, and I don't know. I think that